In the ancient records of humanity, there is a detail so strange that many people dismiss it instantly. The earliest generations of human beings were said to live not for decades, but for centuries. Adam lived 930 years. Seth lived 912 years. Enosh lived 905 years. Kenan lived 910 years. Jared lived 962 years. Methuselah lived 969 years. Noah lived 950 years. For modern readers, this sounds impossible. Today, the average human lifespan is around 70 to 80 years. Even the longest recorded human life barely passed 120 years. So the question naturally arises, were these numbers symbolic? Or did early humans actually possess a biological system radically different from our own? What if the ancient lifespans were not myth, not exaggeration, but a record of a lost biological reality? To answer that question, we must step into a world that no longer exists, a world before the flood, a world where the environment, the atmosphere, and even the structure of the human body itself may have been fundamentally different from what we know today. The ancient text in Genesis describes the early human timeline in precise chronological detail. It lists ages at which each patriarch had children and the total number of years they lived. The pattern repeats consistently across generations. If the numbers were symbolic, we would expect irregularity, but instead the record is systematic, almost clinical. The pattern suggests that whoever preserved these records believed they were documenting actual lifespans. But if humans once lived nearly 1,000 years, what biological mechanisms could possibly allow that? Modern science gives us an important clue. The primary reason humans age is not simply time, that is cellular decay. Every time a cell divides, the protective caps on our DNA, called telomeres, become shorter. These telomeres act like the plastic tips on shoelaces. They prevent genetic material from unraveling, but over time, they wear down. When they become too short, the cell can no longer divide properly. The body begins to deteriorate. This process drives aging in nearly every organism on Earth. But imagine a human body with vastly longer telomeres. Imagine cells that could replicate hundreds or thousands of additional times before reaching their limit. Suddenly, the concept of centuries-long life becomes less impossible and more biological. Some scientists already study organisms that show hints of this possibility. The Greenland shark can live for more than 400 years. The ocean quahog clam has been measured at over 500 years old. And certain jellyfish species can theoretically reset their biological age indefinitely. These creatures demonstrate that extreme longevity is biologically achievable under the right conditions. So the real question is not whether long life is possible. The question is whether early humans lived in conditions that allowed such biological potential to be expressed. To explore that possibility, we must consider the environment of the pre-flood world. Many ancient traditions describe that world as radically different from the one we inhabit today. Some researchers propose the existence of a vapor canopy surrounding the Earth. According to this hypothesis, the atmosphere once contained a thick layer of water vapor above the sky. This canopy could have created a greenhouse-like climate across the planet, with stable temperatures, reduced radiation, and increased atmospheric pressure. Such conditions would dramatically alter biology. Higher atmospheric pressure increases oxygen absorption in the bloodstream. Modern hyperbaric oxygen therapy demonstrates this effect clearly. When humans are exposed to increased oxygen pressure, cells repair themselves more efficiently. Wound healing accelerates. Tissue regeneration improves. Some researchers even believe hyperbaric conditions can slow aspects of aging. Now imagine a world where this condition existed naturally everywhere on Earth, that the human body evolving within such an environment might operate at a completely different metabolic pace. Another factor is radiation exposure. Today, Earth is constantly bombarded by cosmic radiation. The magnetosphere protects us partially, but not completely. Radiation damages DNA over time, accelerating mutation and aging. But if the pre-flood canopy filtered much of that radiation, the genetic stability of early humans could have been dramatically higher. Less DNA damage means slower aging at the cellular level. But the environment alone may not explain everything. The early human genome itself might have been fundamentally different. Genetic entropy is a concept discussed in population genetics. It suggests that over long periods, mutations gradually degrade genetic information. Every generation inherits a slightly damaged version of the previous genome. Most mutations are harmful or neutral. Very few are beneficial. If the earliest humans possessed a near-perfect genome, free from accumulated mutations, their biological systems could have functioned at peak efficiency. Cells would replicate with fewer errors. Proteins would fold correctly. Metabolic pathways would operate with extraordinary precision. This idea aligns with another curious pattern found in the ancient record. After the flood, the lifespans begin to drop rapidly. Noah lived 950 years, but his son, Shem, lived 600 years. Arphaxad lived 438 years. Peleg lived 239 years. By the time of Abraham, the lifespan had dropped to around 175 years. Within a few more generations, it approached modern levels. Something changed in the human condition. Something that permanently altered the biological limits of the human body. Many researchers believe the global flood described in ancient traditions could have been that turning point. If the atmospheric canopy collapsed during the flood, the protective environment of the early world would have vanished. Radiation exposure would increase. Climate instability would rise. Genetic mutations would accumulate more rapidly, and the human lifespan would begin its long decline. But there may be an even deeper biological explanation hidden in modern research. One of the most fascinating discoveries in longevity science is the enzyme telomerase. This enzyme rebuilds telomeres, allowing cells to divide far beyond their normal limit. In most human cells, telomerase is inactive, but in certain cells, such as stem cells, it remains active. If the early human genome allowed higher telomerase activity throughout the body, aging could have been dramatically slowed. Cells would continually repair their genetic caps, maintaining youthful function for centuries. Some animals already demonstrate this ability. Lobsters, for example, produce telomerase throughout most of their bodies. As a result, they do not age in the same way humans do. They grow larger and stronger for most of their lives until environmental factors eventually kill them. Theoretically, a lobster could live indefinitely, if not for disease or predation. This shows that biological aging is not an unavoidable law. It is a programmable process embedded within genetic systems. Now imagine early humans possessing a similar mechanism, a genome designed for longevity. Cells capable of renewing themselves again and again. The body would age slowly, almost imperceptibly across centuries. A person might reach what we consider middle age after 200 years. Physical maturity could extend for hundreds of years. This possibility sheds light on another puzzle in ancient history. Rapid development of early civilization. Archaeology reveals that advanced knowledge appeared very early in human history. Agriculture, architecture, astronomy, metallurgy. These technologies emerged surprisingly quickly. But if early humans lived for centuries, knowledge would accumulate differently. A single individual could observe generations, conduct experiments over decades, and refine discoveries across centuries. Instead of knowledge being lost with each generation, it could be carried forward by the same mind for hundreds of years. Consider what that means for engineering. A builder who constructs a structure could observe its performance for 200 years. He could refine his techniques, correct mistakes, and pass perfected knowledge to his descendants. Civilization would accelerate rapidly. But there is also a darker dimension to long lifespans. The ancient texts suggest that the pre-flood world became increasingly violent and corrupt. As populations grew, powerful individuals could dominate societies for centuries. Imagine rulers who never die, leaders who maintain power for hundreds of years. Such stability could easily become tyranny. The same longevity that allowed knowledge to flourish might also have amplified human corruption. Some ancient traditions even describe the existence of hybrid beings during that era, beings produced through the union of heavenly entities and human women. These beings, often called giants, were said to possess immense strength and influence. While interpretations vary, the narrative suggests that the biological order of humanity was being altered. If genetic manipulation occurred in that ancient world, it could have further complicated the biological landscape. Hybridization might introduce instability into the human genome. Perhaps the flood was not only an environmental reset, but also a biological one, a cleansing of corrupted genetics. Yet even after the flood, the echoes of long life remained. The post-flood patriarchs still lived for centuries. Though gradually declining, this transitional phase suggests that the human genome retained fragments of its original longevity, programming. But over generations, mutations accumulated, and the biological system slowly deteriorated. Modern research hints that this ancient longevity program may still exist within us, dormant but not completely lost. Scientists studying epigenetics have discovered that genes can be switched on or off depending on environmental signals. Some longevity genes, such as those regulating cellular repair and metabolic efficiency, can be activated under specific conditions. Caloric restriction, for example, triggers longevity pathways in many organisms. It activates genes that repair DNA and protect cells from damage. In laboratory experiments, certain animals have doubled their lifespan through metabolic adjustments alone. Another fascinating discovery involves the Yamanaka factors. These proteins can partially reset the biological age of cells. In experiments with mice, scientists have reversed some signs of aging by activating these genetic programs. If such mechanisms exist within our biology, it raises a profound possibility. A blueprint for extreme longevity may still be embedded within human DNA, waiting to be rediscovered. But perhaps the most intriguing question remains unanswered. What did a 600-year-old human actually look like? Were they elderly and frail, or did they remain vigorous for centuries? The genealogical records provide a subtle clue. Many patriarchs fathered children well past what we consider old age. Some had children at 300, 400, even 500 years old. This implies that their reproductive systems remained functional for centuries. In modern humans, fertility declines sharply with age. But in the pre-flood timeline, reproductive capability appears extended dramatically. This suggests that aging itself occurred much more slowly. Instead of a rapid decline after midlife, the early human body may have followed a completely different aging curve. Youth might last for 100 years. Adulthood could extend for several centuries. Only in the final decades of life would decline begin. Such a biological model aligns with certain mathematical patterns in the genealogies. When plotted on a timeline, the lifespans form a smooth exponential decline after the flood, rather than random fluctuations. This pattern resembles genetic degradation over generations. But the story of long lifespans does not end with ancient history. In remote regions of the world, isolated communities sometimes report unusual longevity. Certain populations consistently produce individuals who live well beyond 100 years. These so-called blue zones include places like Okinawa, Sardinia, and Ikaria. Researchers studying these communities discovered common lifestyle patterns: simple diets, low stress, strong social bonds, but also genetic markers associated with longevity. These markers influence inflammation, cellular repair, and metabolic efficiency. While blue zone residents do not live for centuries, their biology demonstrates how environmental and genetic factors combine to shape lifespan. This supports the idea that human longevity is flexible, not fixed. If the pre-flood environment truly differed in atmospheric composition, radiation exposure, and ecological stability, then the human body evolving within that system might indeed sustain life for hundreds of years. Yet there remains one final mystery. Why were such extraordinary lifespans recorded so carefully in ancient texts? If the numbers were merely symbolic, there would be little reason to preserve them with such precision. But if they represented the fading memory of humanity's original biology, then those genealogies become something else entirely. They become historical data points documenting the gradual collapse of a once extraordinary lifespan. And that possibility forces us to confront a profound idea. The human body we inhabit today may not represent the original design of our species. We may be living in a diminished biological state, a shadow of what humanity once was. Imagine a future where genetic science unlocks the ancient longevity mechanisms hidden within our DNA. Imagine medicine capable of repairing telomeres, eliminating accumulated mutations, and restoring cellular renewal. The human lifespan could expand dramatically, perhaps not to 900 years, but far beyond anything we know today. Yet such power would raise enormous ethical questions. How would society change if humans lived for centuries? Would knowledge flourish? Or would inequality deepen? Would wisdom increase? Or would corruption simply last longer? The ancient world may already have answered that question. According to the old narratives, the era of extreme longevity ended not because humans mastered it, but because they misused it. And if those stories contain even a fragment of truth, then the mystery of the 600-year lifespan is not merely about biology. It is about the fragile balance between human capability and human responsibility. Because the greatest question may not be whether humans once lived for centuries. The greatest question is whether we were ever meant to. And if the ancient lifespans were real, then somewhere deep within the human genome, the echo of that forgotten age may still remain, waiting to be understood.